The vast space station drifted in the void between the stars. It was named Nexus Prime, and its size surpassed many moons. Within its crystal walls, beings from distant worlds gathered for a momentous assembly. Kang Dejo walked steadily down the long corridor. His black shoes echoed faintly against the polished floor. A plain leather bag hung from his hand, and his dark suit seemed dull beside the vivid garments and unusual attire of the aliens nearby. As he passed, many eyes followed him. Some belonged to figures with softly glowing blue skin. Others were insect-like giants bearing sharp claws. A few hovered above the ground without touching it. They whispered in tones like music, wind, or storms. Dejo remained composed beneath their stares. He had trained years for this occasion. Humanity had at last built ships capable of crossing stars. Now they sought entrance into the Galactic Council. But first, they needed approval. The chamber was immense, shaped from flawless crystal. Hundreds of alien delegates sat in floating seats that drifted through the air. At the center stood a tall figure formed of what seemed like living glass. This was High Arbiter Valar, Master of the Council. "We convene today," Valar declared, his voice chiming like bells, "to consider the petition of a new species. They call themselves humans." A ripple of sound passed through the hall, some laughter, some clicking claws, others flashing colors like radiant storms. "These humans," Valar continued, "ask us to acknowledge their claim to one modest star system at our galactic edge. They have only just begun to cross between worlds." The laughter grew louder within the crystal hall. Dejo waited patiently for his moment. He had expected mockery. Humanity was young among the stars, and their ships and weapons seemed crude beside galactic marvels. "The human envoy may speak," Valar announced. Dejo stepped forward and bowed with courtesy. "Thank you, High Arbiter. I am Kang Dejo, voice of Earth and its colonies." Several delegates murmured in surprise. Few had realized humans possessed colonies already. "We come seeking peace," Dejo said firmly. "We do not wish to seize what belongs to others. We only ask recognition as equals and the right to dwell in our space free of interference." A towering being rose, its body a blend of lizard and bird. This was Counselor Thex Mora of the Korul, a proud warrior race. Thex hissed sharply. "Your vessels burn chemical fire like toys. Your weapons are steel and powder. You crawl barely beyond your cradle, yet dare to name yourselves our equals." Nods and murmurs swept the chamber. Many had observed humanity for decades. They remembered its wars, its pollution, its reckless flaws. To them, humans looked like children wielding dangerous toys. Dejo's smile remained steady. "We understand our tools seem primitive to those who have roamed the stars for ages. Yet wisdom is not measured by technology alone. We believe every thinking race deserves respect, no matter how their tools are shaped." "Choice?" another delegate challenged. "A being like a living tree with glowing fruit upon its limbs. You speak as though your crude tools are a choice rather than a chain." "Perhaps," Dejo replied softly. "The border between choice and limitation is never so simple." Telepathic species shifted uneasily in their seats. They had tried to peer into the human's thoughts since his arrival, but his mind was hazy, like shadows behind frosted glass. Shapes moved, but nothing was clear. High Arbiter Valar lifted a crystal hand, and the chamber fell silent. "The human petition shall be weighed. This session ends." As the council dispersed, clusters of aliens lingered in quiet discussion. Passing them, Dejo caught fragments of whispers. "They might be useful," one alien murmured to another. "Lower species often serve as useful labor." "Their planet holds abundant resources," murmured a being resembling a drifting jelly, "and they reproduce rapidly." "We should open trading posts in their system," proposed another. "Purchase their raw goods cheaply and market finished products at steep margins." Dejo kept moving, his expression unreadable. Yet inside his jacket pocket, a tiny recorder captured every phrase. The device appeared to be a basic comm unit, but it actually hid technology far superior to what the council races had encountered. Back on Earth, analysts pored over those tapes. They examined each phrase, each cadence, each clue to the galactic people's true opinions of humanity. Such intelligence would prove crucial in the days to follow. 3 days later, Dejo held private talks with several alien chiefs. They arrived at his modest cabin on Nexus Prime, bearing proposals and conditions. "Your species needs direction," said Ambassador Quim, a creature with many eyes and reaching arms. "We could advance your engineering. All we would request in exchange is rights to your world's oceans. We require the water for our settlements." "How magnanimous," Dejo answered. "Yet humans treasure our oceans. Perhaps other terms could be arranged." More envoys arrived with varied offers. Some wanted to erect factories on human planets. Others proposed purchasing human art and culture. A handful suggested that young humans study at galactic academies, though they would be expected to serve as attendants to fund their tuition. To every proposition, Dejo responded with courteous but non-committal words. He expressed gratitude for their interest. He promised to relay their ideas to Earth's government. He asked measured questions that gave the impression he was moved by their benevolence. But late at night, alone in his room, Dejo transmitted encrypted dispatches back to Earth. The notes resembled simple letters to loved ones, yet concealed detailed reports on each alien species he had encountered. He cataloged their engineering, their vulnerabilities, their anxieties, and their ambitions. He recorded which nations might be trusted and which were already scheming to exploit humanity. He marked possible allies and definite foes. Above all, he validated what human scouts had quietly learned over decades of covert surveillance. The galactic civilizations were not as advanced as their image suggested. Their technology had evolved slowly over millennia, and they had grown complacent and idle. They seldom innovated or embraced risk. They were also riddled with flaws. They hid many faults. Some wore polished facades that masked internal decay, and others fostered divisions that weakened their unity and resolve, deeply so. Some races were collapsing after poisoning their native worlds. Others battled uprisings among the species they had subjugated. Many fought covert wars for territory and resources. The Galactic Council projected unity and power, but within it lay fractures and weakness, and none suspected that humanity had been studying them far longer than they realized. As Dejo readied for rest, he gazed from his chamber window at the stars. Somewhere out there, hidden in the void, human vessels drifted quietly through space. They showed no shining lights, no energy traces for alien sensors to detect. They resembled simple debris caught in solar winds. Yet within, human crews kept silent watch. They tracked alien transmissions, charted territories, and prepared for what was to come. The aliens imagined humans as primitive petitioners begging for approval. They could not guess humanity had been preparing for this moment for over half a century. Nor did they suspect the plain leather bag Dejo carried held knowledge able to tip the balance of galactic power. Tomorrow, he would again play the humble envoy at council. But tonight, as he smiled at the stars, he knew the game had begun, and humanity already held the advantage. 3 months had passed since Kang Dejo first addressed the Galactic Council. The alien leaders still debated humanity's petition, yet impatience had taken root. Some demanded deeper insight into these humans before judgment. Among them was Admiral Kesvar, commander of the Coral Empire's war fleets, a race of massive reptilian beings who revered strength above all. Kesvar's scales were black as void, and his eyes glowed red when anger flared. "Talk wastes our time," Kesvar declared in his flagship's command hall. "These humans claim dominion over a system. How do we know this is true? Their strength must be tested." His officers voiced agreement. They were coral warriors who had conquered countless worlds for their empire. To them, humans seemed weak prey. "We will dispatch a research fleet to their system," Kesvar announced. "We shall tell the council it is for scientific survey, but in truth, we will test their defenses." 2 weeks later, 12 coral warships emerged on the edge of the Sol system. Each vessel stretched the length of a human metropolis, armed with weapons able to shatter planets. Their armor could withstand stellar heat, and their shields deflected nearly all known arms. The fleet advanced slowly toward the human inner worlds. Kesvar expected crude orbital stations, perhaps a few outdated craft. He was already plotting the tribute he would demand from Earth. Instead, his scanners revealed the unexpected. A lone human vessel moved to intercept. "Admiral," his comms officer reported, "a message from the human ship." "On screen," Kesvar ordered. The image of a human woman filled the bridge. She wore a plain blue uniform without medals or markings. Her name was Commander Lee Sujin, captain of the Earth defense ship Indomitable. Her expression was calm, though she faced 12 warships with one. Admiral Kesvar, Sujin said evenly. This is Commander Sujin of the Indomitable. You are trespassing in human space. Alter course at once. Kesvar and his officers broke into laughter. The human vessel was tiny beside their titans. To their eyes, it was steel and rivets, with weak shields and crude cannons like pipes. Little human, Kesvar sneered, return to your world before you are harmed. We are here on official galactic duty. Sujin's expression did not waver. Admiral, I ask you once more, leave our space. This is your final warning. Warning? Kesvar roared, amusement echoing through the hall. You dare threaten the fleet of the Coral Empire? Your toy ship would not scratch our hull! Sujin exhaled softly. Very well. All stations, weapons free, engage. What followed astonished all who saw it. The human ship did not unleash energy beams or missile salvos like conventional fleets. Instead, it surged to tremendous speed and fired objects that seemed like simple metal rods. But they were no simple rods. These were dense tungsten slugs, hurled at devastating velocity by magnetic acceleration. Upon striking coral hulls, they tore through armor and shields alike, piercing them as bullets shred thin cloth. For thousands of years, the Kofor centuries, the coral had perfected defenses against beams of energy. Their shields absorbed lasers and deflected plasma fire. Their armor endured heat strong enough to melt most metals. But they had never faced raw kinetic force traveling at such velocity. Impossible! Kesvar roared as his flagship shook under repeated strikes. How can primitive weapons pierce our shields? His tactical officer's hands flew over the console. Admiral, their projectiles are moving at 12% of light speed. Our barriers cannot block solid matter at such impact. The first coral warship erupted as tungsten penetrators split its reactor core. A second vessel spun helplessly when its engines were destroyed. A third went silent as a shot severed its power grid. Commander Sujin guided her ship with flawless precision, weaving past counterfire and returning devastating blows. Every strike landed true, each aimed with surgical intent. She does not fight like a primitive, one officer muttered. Her tactics? They are perfect. It's as if she already knows where to strike. The officer was more right than he knew. Humanity had studied coral vessels for decades. They knew their flaws, their blind spots, the systems most vulnerable to a well-placed hit. 17 minutes later, 11 coral warships lay ruined or disabled. Only Kesvar's flagship remained battered but still afloat. Admiral, his comms officer stammered, fear in his voice. The human is transmitting again. Sujin appeared once more, her face calm, as though the battle had been little more than an exercise. Admiral Kesvar, she said evenly, you may return home. But next time, remember that civilized guests ask permission before entering another's home? Kesvar stared, stunned. His proud fleet shattered by one human ship, his feared reputation broken. Worse still was how effortlessly they had won. You fight without honor, he growled. You use the weapons of cowards, Sujin raised a brow. Admiral, you brought 12 warships to crush one. Tell me, who is the coward here? With his fleet destroyed and his flagship crippled, Kesvar had no choice but to withdraw. As his vessel limped from the Sol system, he sent a transmission across galactic frequencies. The humans are not what they appear, he warned. Their weapons are strange, their tactics flawless. Do not underestimate them as I did. The record of Kesvar's humiliation spread like wildfire. Strategists across the galaxy dissected every frame, struggling to explain how crude weapons had achieved such effect. Some claimed luck, others blamed coral arrogance. But the most perceptive analysts realized something far darker. The humans had not displayed their full power. They could have annihilated 12 ships in minutes, but instead prolonged the fight. Sujin could have slaughtered thousands, yet chose only to disable. The humans had applied precisely the force required to win. No more, no less. This restraint was more terrifying than any display of brute strength. It implied that humanity possessed far greater power than they had shown. Their victory hinted at far greater military power than humans had yet revealed. It suggested the Sol system was defended not by a handful of crude craft, but by forces capable of challenging whole galactic fleets. Within days of the encounter, alien intelligence services began to re-examine everything they believed about humanity. Long-range arrays swiveled toward human space, hunting for hidden shipyards and secret armories. What they discovered was alarming. The solar system hosted industrial works on a scale that outmatched most galactic states. Megastructures orbited every world and moon. Asteroid belts had been reshaped into automated foundries. Humanity was assembling something enormous, and had been at it for a very long time. High Arbiter Velar summoned an emergency council. For the first time in his many years, the living crystal felt an unfamiliar sensation: apprehension. The human problem, he told the gathered delegates, is far more pressing than we assumed. Delegates who had once scoffed at humans now tightened their faces with worry. If one human vessel could rout a coral armada, what might an entire human fleet be capable of? But fear came too late. The humans had already passed the exam. They had shown they could repel any immediate threat the galaxy posed. And out in the black, more human ships glided silently toward their objectives, carrying weapons and devices that would reshape the balance of power across the stars. After Kesvar's humiliation, alien intelligence networks worked non-stop to unmask humanity's true capabilities. Spy sats were dispatched, data brokers bribed, analysts pulled every fragment of information they could find. What surfaced made prior fears look modest. 2 weeks after the battle, Dr. Park Hai-Wan arrived on Nexus Prime. She presented as an upbeat researcher with a warm smile and an interest in xenobiology. Alien scientists welcomed her. She seemed innocuous and eager. "I'm thrilled to study different life forms," Park told the Galactic Research Council at her first briefing. "On Earth, we have only one intelligent species. Here I can observe dozens of evolutionary experiments." The Valari researchers were glad to assist. They toured Park through labs and explained diverse physiologies, feeding habits, and reproductive cycles. Park listened with genuine curiosity and kept meticulous notes. What they failed to perceive was that Park was Earth's foremost authority on biological warfare. Every friendly query hid a probe for weakness. Every tissue sample she examined under their microscopes was scoured for genetic susceptibilities. When a Valari scientist proudly produced a specimen to demonstrate, their victory hinted at far greater military strength than they'd let on. It suggested the Sol system was not guarded by a few crude vessels, but by forces that could threaten entire galactic armadas. Within days of the engagement, alien intelligence services rechecked every assumption about humanity. Long-range sensors turned toward human space, scouring for hidden shipyards and secret armories. What they uncovered was alarming. The solar system contained industrial operations on a scale that outmatched most galactic states. Colossal installations circled each planet and moon. Asteroid belts had been converted into automated factories. Humanity had been building something vast, and had been doing so for a very long time. High Arbiter Velar convened an emergency council. For the first time in his long existence, the living crystal felt a new sensation: fear. "The human matter," he told the assembly, "is more urgent than we anticipated." Delegates who had once dismissed humans now wore worried expressions. If a single human vessel could obliterate a coral battle group, what might a full human fleet accomplish? But dread had come too late. Humans had already passed the test. They had demonstrated they could repel any immediate threat from the galaxy. And out in the dark, more human ships glided toward their objectives, carrying weapons and devices that would soon alter the balance of power across the stars. After Kesvar's rout, alien intelligence networks worked non-stop to unmask humanity's true capabilities. Spy satellites were launched, data brokers bribed, analysts scoured every trace of information. What they found made prior fears seem small. 2 weeks after the clash, Dr. Park Hai-Wan arrived at Nexus Prime. She presented as an energetic, smiling scientist claiming interest in xenobiology. Alien researchers welcomed her. She appeared harmless and eager. "I'm thrilled to study other life forms," Park told the Galactic Research Council. "On Earth, we have one intelligent species. Here I can examine dozens of evolutionary paths. Volari scientists eagerly showed her their labs, described diverse physiologies, diets, and reproductive cycles. Park listened intently and took careful notes. What the aliens did not know was that Park was Earth's leading authority on biological warfare. Every amiable question masked a probe for weakness. Every tissue sample she inspected beneath alien microscopes was searched for genetic vulnerabilities. When a Volari researcher demonstrated how their crystal bodies conducted energy, Park asked naive-sounding questions about what would happen if that flow were interrupted. When insectoid scientists exhibited hive mind signals, she mused about possible interference patterns that could sever their mental links. The alien staff answered openly, unaware she was cataloging ways to fell them. Meanwhile, other human teams were making alarming finds in deep space. General Kim Taung oversaw training near the edge of human territory. His fleet rehearsed maneuvers with weapons untested in combat, targeting an uninhabited asteroid belt with experimental energy systems. When fired, the blasts produced detonations visible across several star systems. Galactic monitoring stations picked up the energy signatures and alarms spread among military leaders. "Sir," an Aorian intelligence officer reported, "we detected discharges equal to antimatter explosions in human space." The commander scanned the data, alarm widening. "How many devices produced that signature?" he asked. "3, sir," came the reply. Silence followed. If 3 weapons could generate that scale of destruction, what might hundreds or thousands achieve? Similar alerts arrived from other outposts. Humans tested weapons that appeared capable of sterilizing planets. They rehearsed fleet movements consistent with preparations for large-scale warfare. Most disturbing of all, they did so openly, almost as if they wanted the galaxy to notice. The turning point came when Quexim, the multi-armed alien who had tried to bargain with Earth, finally cracked human networks. Renowned as the premier hacker in galactic intelligence, he boasted he could penetrate any system. What he found in human channels shattered long-held beliefs about Earth. Humans were not a single-world species just venturing into space. They maintained colonies in 17 star systems. They had been covertly exploring the galaxy for more than 50 years. Their industry surpassed that of many galactic powers. Worse, human agents had observed every major alien species for decades, embedding within societies, mapping militaries, and studying cultures. The Watchers had themselves been watched. Quexim's hands trembled as terabytes of intelligence downloaded. Humans possessed lists of secret coral bases unknown even to the Galactic Council. They had detailed schematics of Thorian industrial sites. They held full genetic databases for every major species. The files showed humanity had been preparing since first contact, each diplomatic meeting used to gather intelligence, every cultural exchange to learn weaknesses, every friendly act a cover for careful observation. Most chilling were the strategic assessments. Human planners had reviewed every war in galactic history, distilled patterns of enemy tactics, identified technological blind spots, and cataloged failures of leadership. They had built precise plans to defeat every species. When Quim attempted to copy the troves, human defenses allowed the download while covertly tracing his location. The humans wanted the galaxy to know what had been discovered. Within hours, Qualim's intelligence leak reached governments across the stars. Panic swept through the council chamber. "They have watched us for 50 years, High Arbiter Valar declared in an emergency session. "They know every weakness, every secret base, every private conversation. All of it has been recorded and analyzed." Alien leaders scanned one another with new, raw fear. How many of their private councils had been observed? How many hidden plans now lay exposed to humanity? And the worst revelation remained. Long-range sensors had detected human installations scattered throughout the galaxy. Small, lightly defended outposts placed at critical shipping lanes, industrial hubs, and military choke points. Counselor Thex Mora, still smarting from coral losses, traced their positions with a strategist's eye. These are not research outposts, he realized. They are forward military bases. The humans are encircling us. The implications were staggering. While the Council argued about admitting humanity, humans had quietly established a strategic presence across known space without asking permission and daring anyone to stop them.